If you're pregnant or planning to grow your family soon, hiring help might feel like something that you can't do necessarily right now. You might think that it's something that you could do in the future, like once you're more profitable, more organized, or have more time. But waiting to make your first hire could be the very thing keeping you stuck in the day-to-day and making it harder for you to step away when your baby arrives. I used to believe I couldn't afford help, that no one could do the things the way that I could, and that hiring someone would cost me more time, not save it. But making my first impactful hire, which was my admin, completely changed how I ran my business. It was the moment I stopped doing it all myself and I started leading like a CEO. Hi, I'm Christina Hall, six-figure business owner and mom of two. I've taken 2 very different maternity leaves as an entrepreneur. The first time I worked round the clock trying to prepare my business, but in the end, it still relied heavily on me. And the second time, I built systems and a team, and my business actually grew while I was gone. And I've helped countless other entrepreneurs do the same. In this episode, I'm sharing the behind the scenes of how I found, trained, and empowered my first admin, what I delegated first, and how that single hire gave me back my time, reduced my stress, and helped me step fully into my role as CEO. If you know it's time to stop doing it all yourself, but you're not sure where to start, book a strategy call with me using the link in the show notes. And together, in that call, we'll map out a plan to help you delegate with confidence and prepare your business to run without you. All right, let's dive in. First, I want to talk about why I resisted getting help. The number one major barrier for me was cost, which was kind of a twofold problem. I was operating on very small profit margins, so I was afraid to spend money to get help. What I failed to realize was I was wasting time on these like $14, $15 an hour tasks, and I wasn't able to grow because I was limited by the number of hours I had each day. When we pay someone to take care of those low-level tasks, we can then reinvest that time into those $100, $200, or even like $1,000 tasks like marketing, developing a new offer, expanding your team, etc. The other aspect of this was that I was undercharging for my services. I set my prices back in 2013, and I didn't increase them until the fall of 2021. That means that every year I was getting better and better at my craft. And then because of inflation, the cost of doing business continued to increase year over year. So essentially, I was providing a better service at the same cost, which really just doesn't make sense. But I didn't really look at things that way at the time, and I was so afraid to raise prices. But in 2021, and this was mostly because I started working with a coach, I took the leap and I raised my prices, and honestly, no one batted an eye. Now, I annually increase our prices anywhere from 2% to 5% each year. And I have never had any students discontinue because of a price increase. And I don't make a big song and dance about it. When it's time for re-enrollment, I just say, would you like to re-enroll? Here is the pricing for next year. I don't say, oh, we've increased and here's why. And blah, blah. I don't even draw attention to it. I just say the price for next school year is this. Now, I have had leads call and share that we are out of their price range, but that 3.5% increase or whatever it was didn't make or break whether they are able to afford our services. So most likely that lead wasn't going to convert anyway, even if I had kept our services at that lower price. Now, another major reason why I resisted getting help was I had this belief that I could do it faster myself. And I must say that when it comes to like repetitive admin work, I am very fast. I knew that I could handle those daily administrative tasks faster than anyone that I hired. So it seemed like such a waste of money to pay someone like $15 an hour to do something in an hour that I could do in 15 minutes. But again, this goes back to that same concept of undervaluing my time. That's still 15 minutes that I could be focusing on something else in the business. It all adds up, the 15 minutes here, the 20 minutes there. Before you know it, when you start handing things off to someone else, you could gain 5 additional hours in your week. And then it grows from there. And then I would say the last thing that kept me stuck and resisting getting help was the belief that no one can do it like me. When I was growing up, my dad was a CFO for a construction company, and part of his job was to hire and manage a team. He would always complain about how difficult it was to find qualified help and that everyone he hired couldn't complete tasks the way he wanted them. Naturally, I believed that if I wanted things done a certain way, I had to do it myself. And really, this kept me stuck for so many years. But when I started following other entrepreneurs and working with coaches, I began to learn that when we hire the right people and we have excellent communication and our systems really dialed in, others can carry out these responsibilities in our business just as well as we can, if not better. So once I started recognizing that these myths, if you will, were holding me back, I decided to take a leap and hire my first admin. And so now, despite all of these fears and beliefs that I had when I was pregnant with my daughter, I knew I had to hire someone if I wanted to take a maternity leave. And that was something that was really important to me. So here is how I found, trained, and made my first hire. I simply wrote out a detailed job description and posted it on Indeed. At the time, there weren't tools like ChatGPT, so I searched on Indeed for similar positions and then used them as a guide to create my own description. The job description has evolved over the years, and I recall during one iteration, I searched for YouTube videos on how to create a compelling job description, and then I followed the steps they provided. Then in other iterations, I used templates that I received from mentorship programs, and now the descriptions I use are a combination of all the various resources. When you're writing your first job description, be sure to include a compelling title, of your mission, the purpose of the position, the responsibilities, attributes for success, hours of work, and how to apply. It's better to be clear than creative. The clearer you are, the more likely you will attract the right person. So I find so many times people will want to create these intriguing titles for the position, and oftentimes that just causes confusion. So you just want to make sure you're super clear about what you're looking for, what your expectations are. Now, for how to apply, I used to have candidates submit a resume and cover letter. But over the years, I've learned that asking for applicants to complete a brief application weeds out a lot of people. You could do this with a simple Google form, and you'll want to include qualifying questions. You want to ask them questions that help you get to know them better than you would by just looking at a resume and cover letter. So think about what's important to you in your business. What is your mission? What are your values? And you can ask questions about those things in the application. Now, I have found that so many people do not pay attention to detail. Many of them will overlook the application. Like when there's the section on the job description that says how to apply, click this link to complete the application. You would be amazed at how many people do not click on that link and complete the application. And if the position that you're hiring for requires someone that pays attention to these small details, then you have just weeded out so many people who are unqualified. And then I've also heard people worry, I don't know if an applicant will want to take the time to complete the application. If they're not willing to spend 5 to 7 minutes to complete an application, they're not the person you want in your organization. So I am a huge fan of the application rather than just send me a cover letter and resume. So back in 2019, when I posted this job description, I posted it on Indeed, but now I do a combination of posting on Indeed, running paid ads on Facebook, and then also posting in local Facebook groups. I also send an email to current clients and our email list, because occasionally a past client or current client is a great fit for the position, or maybe they know someone who would be a great candidate. So you always want to tap into your current and past clients, in addition to using platforms like Indeed and Facebook to get the word out. Now, once I started receiving the resumes and cover letters, I started sifting through everything, and I can't remember exactly, but probably about 3 to 5 candidates to interview. And then from there, I chose someone who I thought would be a good fit. I began training her, and then I had to let her go after about a week. She was not a good choice. She really lacked that attention to detail, but it wasn't entirely her fault. I definitely didn't set clear expectations, and while I did some form of training, I didn't give her enough hands-on experience before she began doing the job on her own. In retrospect, had I been using that application system that I shared with you earlier, I guarantee you that the person that I hired would have never even applied. So that's why that strategy is just so effective. So after that negative experience, it was back to the drawing board, and I reposted the job description and interviewed additional candidates, and then I hired someone who actually still works for me 6 years later. While I was only marginally better at training, she was just so great at reading between the lines and finding ways to make herself useful. I honestly really hit the jackpot when I hired her, and she has bared with me as I've learned how to develop systems and lead better and grow a business. So if you are hiring for the first time, my best piece of advice would be start slow and focus on clarity. If someone doesn't understand something, it is likely because you're not explaining it clearly, not that the person is incompetent. Another piece of advice that I want to share around hiring is make sure you hire slowly and fire quickly. You will know pretty quickly if someone is not a good fit, and it's so much better to cut ties early on than say, oh, well, maybe we can make this work and whatnot. Like, no, you don't have time for that. If it's not a good fit, just cut ties and then start searching again for someone new. All right, now let's talk about what I delegated first. So I was really nervous when I started delegating because up until that point, I had been doing everything myself. So the first thing I delegated was data entry. I was way too nervous for her to handle client-facing tasks. So we started with the simple data entry, and I could easily check that. She really couldn't make any mistakes that I couldn't easily fix. So we started there. And then I expanded to having her manage a calendar. Then I got her involved in creating and sending invoices and then following up for those invoices. And then this was a big moment when I trusted her to handle the inbox and then leads and then sales calls. And now, fast forward 6 years later, she handles every aspect of the day-to-day operations. And I have to say, she does it far better than I could. And I know this because whenever she is away and I step in, it takes me 10 times longer to do the things she does. So it's so funny how I was sharing earlier, 6 years ago, I didn't want to hire someone because I could do everything faster than the person that I hired. But now the roles have reversed, right? Because I'm not doing those tasks every day. My admin is way faster, way more accurate, and way more efficient than I am when I do the work. So it's just so funny how that happens. So it's a process and it takes time. But what I have learned is it's best to delegate in steps. So first, have them watch you do the task. And this could be in person, or you can record your screen and talk through what you're doing and send that to them. But essentially, you want them to watch you do the task first, then have them do the task while you watch them. That way you could give them feedback and coach them through it. And then for a period of time, make sure you're checking their work. Or depending on what the task is, you might identify KPIs that will ensure quality, but you don't want to just hand it over and be like, okay, go for it, without actually checking in on the work in some capacity. And then lastly, you want them to document the process so that anyone in your organization can carry out that process. And it's so much better if they document it instead of you documenting it, because sometimes as business owners, we see things at a very high level and we may miss out on some of those tiny little details when we're writing out our system and processes. Once I made that hire, so many things changed. I started seeing that the business could operate without me, and it gave me so much more time and freedom. I started putting that time into higher leverage tasks, and I started seeking out coaches and mentorship programs so I could up-level my skills. That was when I started to learn how to do paid marketing, which therefore increased our revenue. And overall, my stress just reduced significantly. It was just the responsibilities in the business were just too much for me to continue doing everything. So making that hire was really what made scaling and growing possible. All right, so today I walked you through the story of my first impactful hire, my admin, and why that decision changed everything in my business. So here's what we covered: why I resisted getting help, including the mindset blocks around cost, control, and speed; how I found, trained, and empowered my first hire even after a rocky start; what I delegated first and how I gradually handed off more as my trust grew; and what changed after that hire, which was more time, more freedom, and a business that no longer depended on me for everything. If hiring feels overwhelming, don't complicate it. Your first hire doesn't need to be full-time or perfect. It just needs to be someone who could take a few tasks off your plate. Start thinking about someone who already knows and loves your business, like a past client. They're often the best people to hire because they already understand your brand and your values. Or you could keep it casual. You could do like a simple post on Instagram or in a Facebook group, letting people know you're looking for a few hours of help each week. Actually, a few episodes ago on the podcast, I interviewed a mompreneur who did exactly that. So when she was preparing for her maternity leave, she just put a casual post on Instagram asking for some assistance and then found the perfect person who now works full-time for her. So it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be very simple. The point is, start small, keep it simple, but get started. Because making that first hire is the first step towards a business that can support you, especially during maternity leave. Now, if you would like extra support, either mapping out your first hire or planning your maternity leave, book a strategy call using the link in the show notes. I'd love to help you set up your business to run and grow without you while you take your maternity leave. And be sure to catch next week's episode where I'm sitting down with Sydney O'Brien, a certified Instagram strategist, military spouse, and homeschooling mom of 4. She shares how to simplify your Instagram strategy so you can grow your business without spending all day online. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the episode. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.